I'll be using this demonstration program to illustrate the importance of declaring variables in the proper way. It is also important to note that it is your job as a C programmer to give variables their initial values. If you do not supply an initial value for a variable, the variable will contain a meaningless value, referred to by programmers as garbage. This garbage is the remains of what was last stored in the memory location that the variable now occupies. We can observe this by running this sample program. As you can see, I have declared variables of type char, short, int, long, float, and double respectively. And I've given them appropriate names. Response is my type char, number of hours, type short, and so forth. Note the presence of the blue keywords to indicate that the data type words are in fact keywords or reserved words. The words response, number of hours, quantity, population, sales amount, and total tax are my made-up words. Notice that I have followed the rules and that there are no blank spaces. Every variable begins with a letter, and so forth. Now, what I've done is declared variables, but I have not given them initial values. I'll finish this program to allow me to demonstrate what happens when I don't declare initial values for these variables. The rest of this program is nothing more than a series of cout statements that will display for us on the screen the contents of each variable. The cout statement consists of the word cout followed by the phrase response contains in quotation marks and then the variable response. Recall that my name of my char variable is response. I've done likewise for number of hours, quantity, population, sales amount, and total tax. Each cout statement is followed by an inline statement, which will cause each of these lines to be on separate lines. Let's compile this program to see what it does. We'll click on Build, and then Build once again. You'll notice that after the compile takes place that I receive a message of 0 errors and 6 warnings. The 6 warnings are coming from the fact that I have not initialized these variables. As you can see from the messages, it tells me that my variable response was used without having been initialized. And I get similar messages for each of the other variables. Now these are warnings, which means I can execute the program. So let's just run that and see what happens. And as you can see, the program does run, but what I get in response is the garbage I was referring to. This demonstrates that each variable does indeed contain a value, but you have no control over what that value is. It is very dangerous to do this and to attempt to use these variables in a calculation in a program. As you can see, each variable does have a value. It is most likely the value that you do not want it to have, however. So returning to the program, we should now modify our declaration statements to initialize each variable appropriately. Each variable type is handled differently. For example, the char data type should be initialized to a blank space. It is important to note here that char data types use the single quotes, not double quotes. The double quotes are used with string data types that we've yet to discuss. We will do so later. So we've initialized response of type char to have an initial value of a blank space. We should give number of hours an initial value of 0. Likewise, the quantity should have an initial value of 0, and the population. Each one of these are a type of integer variable, so we're giving them the initial value of 0. Float, on the other hand, should be given the initial value of 0.0, which is the proper way to initialize any variable which can support decimals. Likewise, double can support decimals, so we give that initial value of 0.0 also. Now let's recompile our program to see what change this will cause. As you can see, I now receive 0 errors and 0 warnings. We'll now run the program, and we can see that the program now contains, or now shows, what each variable contains. Response contains nothing, and each of the variables show a null value or a value of 0. So recall that when you're declaring variables, it is important not only to declare a specific data type, a name, but also a specific initial value. This will become more important as your programs become more and more complex. Throughout this course, I'll be following this practice, that is, to declare variables and give them initial values. even if those values are initialized as 0.